Hello everyone, good morning. Thank you for taking time from your busy schedule and joining the training program for today on Desktop Central Software Deployment Module. So before we start the training, we just want to show you the different schedules. So there's a series of training for 5 weeks. So week 1 is already been covered last week by my colleague on patch management, and week 2, that is today, will be the software deployment, will be covered by me, followed by the upcoming weeks on remaining modules. So the customers who have already registered for the training will get notified via email from our end. So first, let me introduce myself. My name is Jayakishan Podar, Senior Technical Consultant from ManageEngine, and I'm associated with Zoho Corp from last 10 years. So the week 2 will be totally covered on software deployment module. So before we move on, let's quickly have a look on the agenda for today. So it will be first overview, where we'll talk what is software deployment, how it works, then how to deploy the software, so how to push on the exe MSI packages using Desktop Central, and then we're gonna cover the different scenarios and the solutions which we came across based on our own experience. And towards the end, we'll take on the questions. So now this is a supported. So before we move on the in-depth, I just want to put in a point. If in case you have any questions or doubts, feel free to put in the chat then and there. So we'll try to answer from our end. What are the different supported OS from software deployment? So as of now, we support Windows and Mac OS platforms, so any compatible applications for Windows and Mac can be deployed. We have 1,000 plus predefined list of applications which are spread across the Windows and Mac, which includes the commercial, free, as well as open source applications. Now, before we dig on more on the software deployment, workflow and architecture, I want to have a quick recap on the Desktop Central architecture as a whole. So as you can see this diagram, you'll have a Desktop Central server placed in your main head office, and you'll have clients which have been managed locally on your LAN, which include Windows or Mac. And you might have WAN environment where you have branch offices or remote offices configured, and you might have a distribution server placed on that. So when you deploy any applications or any task, the distribution server will communicate to the main server and take the task and execute locally on that site. Or if you have only a few machines with the direct communication, you can even manage them as a direct office machines. We also support mobile users, which is basically the roaming users, the sales folks, the guys who travel a lot, who don't connect to your corporate network. Technically, you can even manage them over the internet by doing NATing on your firewall. So overall, you can manage local office machines, remote office machines, branch offices, as well as roaming users using Desktop Central. Next point I'd like to recap, which we even discussed on our last session, which is about 90 minutes refresh policy on the agent side. So let's take a scenario where you're deploying a software package to 5,000 machines. In that case, you have, let's say, 100 machines contacting to the server in first 1 minute, then the next set of 100 machines contacting the server in next minute. So that definitely, if you allow all the 5,000 machines to communicate to the server at the same time and deploy the package, it will impact your network. It may choke up your network. It may also impact the performance CPU spike on the server end. So the server, we have intelligence where we have done the refresh policy configured in such a way that the agents will communicate in different time interval within 90 minutes, take the job, and execute on the client machines. So this is how the 90 minutes refresh cycle is set up. All right, so now let's talk on how the software deployment works really in the back end. So let's take an example now. You have a software with you and you want to deploy using desktop central server. So what really happens when I deploy a software? So as you can see, you have a central server in your main head office and you have a clients being managed locally in your LAN, and you have a network share repository which is configured in your local office, and you have a remote office which is managed via distribution server, and you have a WAN clients out there in that remote office. So when you deploy a software, communicates, pick up the package from the local share and installs it directly, whereas in case of remote office, the distribution server will replicate the package from the network share repository or the HTTP repository and copy to local machine, and the agents residing on the remote office will pick up the package from the local DS machines. So basically you're saving a bandwidth if you have a distribution server. So that's how the software deployment works. Now we're going to talk on how to deploy a software. So you have a exe MSI package with you and you want to deploy using software deployment. So that it involves 3 different stages. So stage 1 is a setup where you have to configure this product so that it can download the package. Stage 2 is to create the package in the product. So whichever the package you have, either exe or MSI, you need to add it to the repository. And once the package is created, then you need to deploy to your required set of machines. So the setup, the stage 1, involves 3 important points. First is the proxy. So if you have a proxy server, you have to ensure that you're given the proper credentials so that it can download the package from the vendor website without any hassle. Then second, if you have any antivirus, any AV solution, then you have to add the proper exceptions to the desktop central server directory, as well as the desktop central agent directory, so that it will not conflict any kind of operations done via desktop central agent or the server. And third point is to configure the software repository, where you have to specify what is the network share where you're going to place all your exe MSI packages. So these are 3 important points under setup. So now let's dig into how to set up this. So this is the product which I'm having in my local setup. So you need to click on the software deployment tab, and on left-hand side under settings, you're going to see proxy settings. On the second option, you can see there will be proxy. You need to click on edit, and that will give you the options, what kind of setup you have, so how the desktop central server is connected to the internet. So if you have a direct connection, you can select that, or if you have any proxy server, you need to ensure you have given a proxy server host details, as well as the port number and the credentials. So why we need proxy? The reason so that we can, when the desktop server goes to the internet to download the respective packages from the respective third-party vendor site, it allows the download without any hassle or restrictions. So you need to provide a proxy for the downloading of packages. Next point was the antivirus. So if you have any AV solutions like McAfee or Symantec endpoint running in an environment, you need to ensure that you are giving proper exceptions to the desktop central server directory, then the desktop central agent directory, as well as the distribution server directory. So why you need exceptions? The reason because with this server directory and the agent directory, there are a lot of DLL files, exe files, which performs the I/O operations. So some AV solutions may detect that as a malicious activity, and that may block or quarantine those files. So to avoid that, you need to provide proper AV exceptions. And the next point was the configuring software repository, which is very important. So this is the initial stage where you need to specify what will be your software repository. So under settings, you see software repository option, and you will see there are two tabs. One is the network share, and second is the HTTP repository. So you might have already a network share configured locally in your environment, which you're already using for all your EXE, MSI packages. So if you want, you can just use the existing share. You can browse to the share folder and select the repository and specify the UNC path out here. And you have to ensure that you are giving read and execute permission to everyone group. Or if in case you have restricted the access to specific user credentials alone, like just say administrator user groups or certain administrators alone, then in that case you need to provide that user credentials out here. So if you have any multiple domains or cross domain, then the credentials supposed to be given. So we will use these credentials to execute the task. Other option is to create a network share. So suppose you do not want to use your existing share, you want to create a new share which you want to use for the product. So you just come here, you just give the new path that will automatically create the desktop central share repository on the server install machine. And same, you have to provide read and execute permission to the everyone group. Otherwise, specify the respective user credentials out here. So this network share is handy when you're managing the machines in local LAN environment. So you have machines running in your LAN, those will communicate this local share and start downloading the package. But if in case you have a WAN environment where you are managing a lot of remote offices, branch offices, so in that case, all the agents gonna communicate to the network share, which is in your main office, and copy multiple files. So that might impact your network or bandwidth. So as administrator, you do not want the agents, to communicate to a common share and download multiple copies of the file. So to handle that scenario, we have given other option called HTTP repository, which is very handy to manage the WAN environment. So in case of HTTP repository, if you have a distribution server placed in the remote office, then all the software packages and will be replicated automatically to the respective distribution servers from your main office network share, and then distributed to your remote office client machines. So there basically you're saving the bandwidth. So instead of all the machines going back to the main share and downloading multiple copies, distribution server will communicate to the main server network location and copy single file to the respective local DS machine and distribute to the clients out there. Other use is if in case you're creating any package using templates. So in that case, whatever packages have been downloaded from the internet will be downloaded and stored under the HTTP repository. So if you have a LAN environment, network share, the local network share will do the job. In case you have a remote office, WAN environment with distribution server, or the roaming users, then HTTP repository is the way to go. So by default, it will be the desktop central server installed directory. However, if you want, you can even change the default HTTP repository. You can move to a different drive or to different network share. So this is the important stage of configuring the software repository. So once you're done with the setup, comes of creating the package. So you have your exe MSI file with you. How can I create the package? So there are two different modes through which you can create the package. One is the template mode, second is a manual mode. Now let's have a look on what is the difference between template-based deployment package creation versus the manual package creation. So in case of template-based, you see it involves complete automation of downloading the software binaries. That means downloading of the exe MSI packages directly from the vendor website, identifying the proper silent switches, the command line parameters, so that it will be installed in the silent backend without any end user intervention, as well as creating the package within the software deployment module. So complete process of downloading, identifying the silent switches parameters, and creating the package will be automated within the product using template mode. Whereas in a manual mode, all these tasks is a manual approach where you need to involve, as administrator, you need to go and search for the package, download the package from the respective vendor site, and then search for the switches. Now just let's take an example, if you want to deploy TeamViewer, so first you need to go to download TeamViewer application. So you need to go to the website, you download the file. That might take some time. Once the package is downloaded, then you have to search for the silent switches for TeamViewer, because you may not be aware of it. So you need to spend time, you need to go to the proper vendor website or Microsoft forums to know about the switches of TeamViewer. And once you get that information, then you need to provide and add that package in the desktop central application. So as you can see, this involves a lot of time and effort, which is completely automated using template-based package creation within Desktop Central. So let me show you live in the product how to create package using template-based, and then what is the approach of creating the package using manual mode. So you go to Software Deployment tab, and left-hand side, you see under Package Creation, the second option, Templates. So as spoke before, we have 1,000+ applications which is already added to our template list, which is having actually most commonly used applications, which is around the world, which includes commercial as well as open source freeware applications. So let's take an example, WinRAR, and it's the WinRAR 5.1. I will try to create a package. You select the package, and right-hand side, you just click on Create Package. So what it does now, it is actually going to the vendor website and downloading the package for you. And within few minutes, if you go to the packages, you see the WinRAR package is ready for you for the deployment. So it is not only download the package within few minutes. If you click on the package name, you will notice you have all the information. So it also have added the proper silent switches for installation as well as uninstallation. So you can see all the information about the package. So it was just matter of few clicks. It was easy to select and create the package. So that's how the steps involved in template-based package creation. Now, just in case we have, if in case you're not having any package in our existing list, but you like to see that, you can click on Get Your Application Added on the right-hand side. That will take you to our website. You just need to fill up the form where you can give the details of what application you want to add, so our team can look into the feasibility. We'll do the testing out here, and we'll try to add the application into our default template list. So that can be done. So of creating the package on template based. So now let's have a look of the package on the manual mode, how to go about the package creation on the manual mode. So for that, you need to go to the packages on the left hand side, and you have to click on Add Package. Then it will show you whether you want to go for Windows or Mac, what kind of OS platform package you want to create, and it'll ask you whether it's MSI file or a exe file. So now, before going for Add Package, you need to first go to the vendor site and download the package. So for example, we'll take let's say Wireshark. So I have to search for the Wireshark. I have to go to the Wireshark website. Then I have to select the file and initiate the download process. That will take some time. So I have already downloaded the Wireshark and I kept it in my share. So you give the package name and then you browse to your local network share repository. So I've already done the download part and kept the file ready. So you browse and select that exe, and then you need to know what is the proper silent switch. So again, that involves time. You need to know the proper switches from the vendor details. So for Wireshark, it is /S. Again, this may vary from application to application. The switches differs from application to application. So you need to know what is the proper silent switch. So once you give the details, then you click on Add Package. Package. See, this involves a lot of time and effort from the administrator point of view. Again, if you have different versions coming out, for the same application, you need to every time again download the new version and re-add the package manually. So this all actions can be avoided if you go via template-based deployment. So we'll always keep on updating our templates. You can always check that. So that was the manual package creation, which is actually time consuming, and you need to put a lot of time to do it. So once the package is added, this is like the repository. It's a one-time job. You have all the packages ready for you. So now you're done with the package creation, either using the deployment or the manual deployment. Next stage comes the deployment part. So how to go ahead and deploy those packages which I've added to the repository. So there are two different modes or methods through which we can deploy the applications. One is the manual deployment, where you can manually select the application and deploy to your target machine. Second is the self-service deployment. I will talk the self-service bit later on. So let's take the manual deployment first. I'll go live to the product, and we'll go to the packages, and we'll pick up one of the package, let's say Wireshark, and we'll try to create a configuration for the deployment. So you select the application, and then you need to click on Install Uninstall Software. and if you click on drop-down menu, you will see two options which are shown for you, which is user configuration and computer configuration. So now you might wonder, what is the difference between these two? So this depends on the type of application which you want to deploy. So if it's a user-based app where you want to deploy for a specific user profile, then you need to select the user configuration, and you have to, in the target, you can select which user you want to deploy the package on. Whereas if it's a system-based application, system profile, a computer-based application, in most of the cases they are, computer-based applications which are used. You need to select the Wireshark and you have to go with computer configuration. So let's create a configuration for deployment. So I will name the configuration as Wireshark deploy, and operation type you need to select install here. And I will notice under configure, install, uninstall option, we click on show. There are a few settings which I like to talk about. So by default, when you deploy any software, it will be installing under system built-in account, which is actually the system user. So every software and patches are deployed using system user. But this doesn't really require or depend on the login user credential. Now there may be some scenarios where you want to execute the software on specific user account. In that case, you need to use the run as. So you can select the run as user option, and you can provide the exact username credentials. So the application will be installed using that credentials. That is option given here. The next is copy function. So again, there may be some scenario where you want to deploy larger package deployment. This example, MS Office. So in that case, if you deploy the application without the copy function, let's say MS Office will be almost close to 1.5 GB file. Now, this roughly I'm taking. So if you deploy this MS Office without the copy, just scenario if in case you had some kind of deployment failure or any kind of interruption, and due to that it got failed in between. So in that case, when you redeploy the same configuration next time, it will start the deployment again from the scratch, and the entire file will be copied on the network share to your client computers. So that again will consume additional bandwidth. So as administrator, you may not want that. So if you go with the copy folder option or copy file option, next time when you deploy that, at the very first attempt, it will copy the entire exe file to the respective client machine and then execute the package locally. So in this case, if in case the package has already been copied and it got failed, you already have a local copy out there in the client. So next time when you execute the configuration, it's going to start from the local copy rather than re-downloading again. So that's what is the function option which you can use for the copy function. The next thing you can notice here is the scheduler. So if you want to deploy the software during non-working hours or weekends, you can specify the timing. You can even restrict a configuration. Let's say you can set expiry date. You deploy that particular configuration to a set of users which have a requirement for next 2 or 3 days. So you can set the expiry date within certain time. If it executes well and good, if not, for that particular configuration, it will not be attempted after that date. So that can be used. Second option you can see is deployment policy. So we have a default set of policy which contains different settings. I'll show you a new policy so we can talk on more details of what this policy contain all about, what are the things we can do using deployment policy. So you can have different set of policies for different departments, different groups, and you can be very specific when you create any task for deployment. You can decide which certain policy you want to use for which set of groups. So under that, you have a settings like you can execute the particular configuration during system startup alone. So only when system reboots during the startup, that configuration or the software will be installed. In the same way, we also have a provision to set up a maintenance window or a deployment window. So you might have a requirement where you want to deploy or install the software between certain time frame. Let's say evening 7 p.m. to morning 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. So the package will be installed only between this time frame. And if in case the machines are turned off, it will be skipped to next day. Again, you can also control which specific day. You want any day of the week between this time frame, or let's say only Saturday and Sunday between this time frame. So you can be more specific if you want. You also have option to turn on the machines before deployment. So if you deployed softwares and the scenario maybe machines are turned off, it will use the wake on LAN function to turn on the machines before executing. So that is again helpful. You can also notify the user. So there may be a scenario where you're deploying the software and the end users might be working on the machine. So you have an option to notify them that as an administrator, your IT department is going to install the patches or software or service pack to your machine. So a kind of notification will be shown to them, and that will come from the system tray. You can even show the progress notification. So if they want to know what is the progress, how much time it needs to complete the installation, even that can be shown. Further, we can even allow the user to skip the deploy. So again, it's something the end users may be working on some important task and they may not want to involve in any kind of installation at that point of time. So they can skip that particular deployment if they want. And as administrator, again, you can be more specific, like allow the user to skip the deploy but force it after 3 days. So till 3 days, you'll have option to skip it. After that, it will by default goes for forced deployment. Same way, continue the deployment if the machine is idle for 30 minutes, or let's say 60 minutes. So whenever you deploy within that target machine, if it's idle for 60 minutes, it will automatically initiate the installation. So those options is there. And then the reboot policy. So once application is installed successfully, they want to reboot the machine then and there, or you want to allow the user to skip the reboot. Same way, you can even set force reboot and give some time for the timeout so that they get enough time to save the data. Same way, you can even go for do not reboot and you can reboot later on. So you have all the flexibility in the deployment policy, which you can decide how you want to use during the deployment. So let's go back to the package which we were creating. So we select Wireshark, we go to install computer configuration, and we give the config name, operation type as install, scheduler we'll skip for now, and then I can select the policy which I created as per my requirement. And in target, you can specify which specific set of machines you want to deploy. So you go for select your domain, and then you can be very specific. Again, you want to deploy to certain OUs or AD groups, or if you have a custom group, you can even point to that. So that only the machines which are under the custom group will take the patch task or the software deployment task. Now next option you see, you have something called retry configuration for the failed machines. So as the word suggests, it is going to retry on the failed machines. You might have a scenario where your deployment was failed on few set of machines out of the total target due to some reason. Now, for the higher success rate, you can configure to reattempt all those machines. Again, the frequency can be decided. Let's say you have given a provision to put during system startup. A classic example is the Java JRE deployment, where you might have a scenario since the Java process was running in the backend. So for those cases, it's always recommended to deploy during system startup. So if you have a retry set during system startup, that particular config will be reattempted during system startup, and that will automatically result in the higher success rate. So that's how you can make use of the retry of the config on the failed machines. The next is the enable notification. So this will generate notification, and it will send to the respective administrators. So when this notification can be used, as soon as you create a configuration and the status moves to ready to execute, it invokes the notification, and as the machine start installing, let's say you have taken a target of 10 machines and deployed the software to 10 machines. As soon as the job goes to ready to execute, once the first machine successfully installs, it will send a notification till the complete target is executed. So till the 10th machine gets the job, the notification will be sent. Once the 10 machines, all the targets are completed, the notification will be stopped. So that's how you can make use of notification. And at the bottom, you will see two options, deploy and deploy immediately. So you can go for deploy. Let's say you're deploying software to 5,000 machines at a time. So in that case, as soon as you click on deploy, the 90 minutes agent refresh policy will come into the picture. So within the first minute, there will be some, let's say 100 machines communicating to the server, and they'll take the job and execute. And of course, the next set of machines will take the job and execute. So within 90 minutes or system startup, whichever is earlier, the job will be deployed. Now, in case if you have any kind of emergency, certain machines, like a CIO or administrator who needs this particular software on an urgent basis, in that case, you can use deploy immediately, which will invoke the agent to communicate to the server and take the job then and there and execute. But again, this limitation to 50 machines max to use deploy immediately. Again, the reason because if you go for deploy immediately, it might impact your network bandwidth. It may choke up your bandwidth if you have a larger set of machines, as well as it may impact the CPU performance on the server side. So we always recommend to go with deploy option as much as possible rather than deploy immediately. So we'll go for deploy for now, and we create a configuration. So as you can see, we have a configuration ready, Wireshark deploy. So that's how you create a manual configuration for the deployment. And once you click on it, you can see the status, how many success, how many fail. So once agents will start posting the data, you can see the status of the data. So that's how the manual package deployment is done. Next thing is the self-service. The self-service portal is handy when you want to publish the list of applications to the end user. So in this feature, the end user will have the list of apps or the provision to download the application and install on their own without contacting the IT department or administrators. So here, let's say take example, you might have a different set of departments and you have different packages to deploy, and you might even have new employees coming in, to different set of departments. So as administrator, you might have to involve a lot of time to deploy different set of applications, different versions to different set of groups. So to avoid those kind of time involvement, you can leverage self-service portal where you're already publishing your commonly used apps within the network, and the end user, once they join to the network, once you have agent installed on them, they will have a option or control to download their required applications and install on their own. So that will save you the time from administrator point of view. So this is the sequence. You need to first create the packages which you want to use or publish into the self-service. Then next stage is to create departments. That is basically the custom groups. You can have different set of groups within the departments, different set of machines which you want to associate with. So you have a control what set of applications should be associated to which departments, that is the custom groups. And once you publish those softwares to the departments, the user can install the software on their own. So let's show you how this self-service really works. So we'll go to Software Deployment tab, and left-hand side you have Self-Service Portal. Now you see you have Publish Software. Again, you have two options. One is computer, one is user. So we'll go to the, if you want to again publish the software to user machines, then you have to use the computer option, or if you want to publish to the user profile, then you have to go for user-based publish application. So difference here is, if you publish to user group, the application will be shown only to those specific user profile guys. Whereas if you set for computer, it whoever logs to those set of machines will see the application published for that computer level. So let's try to select the custom group specific which group you want to create. Let's go and create a group. You go to admin, new group. So I can create a group if I want. Let's take a developer department, and I can select which specific machines I want in that, and the group is created. We'll go back to software deployment, self-service portal, publish software, computer, and we'll select that group which I just created, and then I can see the list of applications which are already added to the packages list. So I can move on certain applications, like let's say example Chrome or Firefox, or WinRAR. These are some commonly used apps, which every end user needs. So you can have all those packages and you can publish those packages in that group. So you can have different set of groups with different set of apps published to them. And once that is done, on the next agent refresh, the end user can click on the agent tray icon and you'll find the self-service portal. And as soon as you click on the self-service portal, he can see this is a wizard he's gonna view. So he'll have a software catalog which will list out all the applications which you have published for him. So he himself can download. You have option to install. As soon as you click on install, it's going to download and install the application in the backend on its own. So here you're basically giving the control of deploying or installing the app to the end user itself. So that basically saves administrator time and efforts, where you're already publishing the common apps and allow the end user to use it. Now, there's one more setting I like to bring in, self-service portal settings. So you can be again very selective where you want to show the self-service portal icon. You want to show only the agent tray icon. You can even create a desktop shortcut, or you can even add it to the start menu. So these will be the places where the end users can access the self-service portal. You can even change the icon if you want. If you want to bring, and there's also one other requirement to enable .NET 4 installation on server. So if you want to use the self-service portal feature on the server OS machine, then you need to enable the .NET 4 installation. This is mandatory. So these are the settings which you can configure for self-service portal. All right. So now let's move on to the scenarios and solutions. So scenario number 1, you might have an application requirement to deploy Autodesk design on few machines, but it requires a .NET framework as a prerequisite. So how to go about it, how to achieve this on Desktop Central. So let me show you how it can be done. So for this, you need to first create an add package for both of them, the .NET as well as Autodesk. So I've already created the package .NET as well as Autodesk. So you need to first select the prerequisites. The .NET is a prerequisite. I will search for it. And I will select the .NET, click on computer configuration. So you see you selected .NET, which is a prerequisite, and you select the operation type as install. And you will notice a tab called Add More Packages. You need to click on it, and that will be added in the list. And then you have to select the Autodesk and add more package. So in other words, you can even add other list of applications. So we also call this as a baselining or the sequential deployment. So the sequence which you add, the same sequence will be installed on the client machine. So you can have multiple package deployment in the one single config. The scenario number 2, you have a software which is actually user-based, like Dropbox or Skype, which are again very commonly used. So how to go about installing those user-based applications? Again, for that, you need to go to the packages list and you need to create the package. Either you can select from our templates list and create the package. So I have already done that. I'll select, let's say, Dropbox. So select the Dropbox and click on Install Uninstall Software, and you will see the user configuration which I just talked a few minutes before. So in this case, since it's a user-based deployment, click on User Configuration and to select Install. And in Define Target, so you select the domain, and you can select your OU or group, whichever users who are inside that OU or the group will take this application, and this will be installed on the particular user profile. So the main point here is to use the user configuration to deploy the user-based apps. Then the next scenario is you have a requirement to install MS Office on few computers, but it requires 2 GB of free disk space. So how can I ensure this prior to installation? So for that, you need to again first add MS Office package. Let's see if I have Office added. This will take this and go to computer configuration. I'm sorry, you need to edit the package. So we'll go back to the, so while creating the package itself, I'll modify it since it's already been added. So you've added the package, you will notice they have options like pre-deployment activities and post-deployment activities. So you have a provision where you can perform the prerequisites, like specifically we talk about free disk space. So here for 2 GB, it will be 2000 MB. And I can set this as a prerequisite. So it will check for the prerequisite, and only if that is met, it will continue with the installation. Same way, you can also leverage other prerequisite scenarios like any kind of registry cleanup or any process which is running, which you want to, kill and then continue. Even that can be done using the pre-deployment activities. Same way, we also have option to use post-deployment activities. So once this MS Office is installed, you might have some actions like cleaning up the temp files or doing a registry file cleanup. So you can prepare a script, which can be VB script or batch file, which will be helpful in executing. So those actions of doing the cleanup or creating the desktop icon can be met using the custom script deployment during the post install. So that's where the post deployment activity can also be helpful. So both the options are handy to perform any prerequisites or post deployment. Next scenario is you have a third-party application which doesn't support the silent installation. So, and how to go about it, how to install it using Desktop Central. So for that, we have an option, something called, let's go to the packages. I'll take Wireshark as an example. I'll modify the package. Sorry, we'll go to the Wireshark. We select the application and we create a configuration. And under install uninstall options, you will notice a provision called allow user to interact with install uninstall window. So you need to check this box. So what it does, it notifies the end user as soon as you deploy this configuration. The end user will get a pop-up on the system tray which will say to continue the installation. So you need to click on install, and then the actual installation wizard of the package will be shown to the end user. So this is the view of stocking. As soon as you deploy the config on the system tray, first the Desktop Central agent itself will show that there is a new software is available for deployment. So the end user has to click on yes. Once you click on yes, then the respective package wizard will be shown. So I've taken TeamViewer as an example. So this, the initial wizard, will be shown to the end user. I need to click on accept and go about next, and that will complete the installation. So that's how you handle from the interactive install. Other solutions to this scenario is you can even create a ISS answer file to deploy, record and playback on the client machine, or you can even use the third-party apps like AutoIT scripts and deploy. Next scenario is if you want to install Java, the latest version, and as well as remove the older version. So this is a very classic example. I'm sure you might came across this multiple times. You have a latest version, but you have a requirement to remove the older one too. So how to go about it? So for this, we need to do almost the same sequential deployment which I talked before. So we have to go to the packages, search for the Java. So since we're talking about older package removal first, I'll try to pick up a bit older version of Java, select that, and click on computer configuration. So as you can see, you have Java 8.31, and we need to move this operation as uninstall and click on add more packages. And then you have to select the latest version of Java which you want to install and add more package. So this will be the sequence of the package execution. So first it will remove the older version, and then it's going to install the newer version on the client machine. So more of the sequential scanning and deployment. Next scenario is you have a set of applications which has a combination of both MS Office and CRM, which I'm sure commonly used by the sales department in every organization. Now, you have a new salespeople joined to the team, and you want to deploy this commonly used for apps to those set of computers. So how can I achieve that? So for that, you can have to enable the settings under configurations. On the left hand side, you see configuration settings. So this is to handle the scenario where new machines are being added to the OU or group, and you want those existing configurations to be executed automatically on those machines. So you have to enable the system startup or during next refresh cycle. So what it does, as soon as you add the new machine to that OU or to the sales group and you install the agent, it will automatically execute the existing configuration which you already have, the previous software which you deployed will automatically execute on those machines, and the software will be installed automatically. So that again saves your time of keeping a track separately of which machines got added and installing the softwares on them still on its own. Further, you also have an option to automatically move any unused configuration to trash. So if in case you do not want to use certain configurations, you can move them to trash, and you can set the time period for that. The next scenario is you have deployed an application using software deployment which was actually successful on the client machine. However, the status shown on the server was failed. Why is that? I'm sure you will wonder why is that, why it's showing fail. So the reason behind is the exit code or the return value set for that particular application from the vendor. So for that, when you create the package, you need to edit the package, and under advanced option, you see by default the exit code is 0. So for those applications, you need to change to 1. So this exit code, the 0 means success by default in most of the application perspective, but in few applications it may vary. So for that cases, you need to move the exit code as 1 and save the package. And then you redeploy the same configuration, and that will show the status as success automatically. And the last scenario is you have a requirement to deploy a business app, let's say kind of Skype, but it got failed. Now you want to troubleshoot by yourself. So yes, you can do that. So for that, let's say we go to the packages, and I will take Skype, modify the package since I've already created that. Now under that, you see the option for MSI package specifically. We have an option called enable logging. So once you check this, once you create the additional log file on the client machine, agent install directory under logs folder, which will be helpful. So I've taken a screenshot of the Skype which I deployed. So this file will have additional information about that installation of that package. So it got failed, why it got failed, it might have more error codes or details which you can use for the analysis. All right, so that brings to the end of the scenarios and from so now we can move on to the questions. Okay, I can see there are many questions which are being raised by our audience. So all of them, however, I'll try to answer a few of them. And if in case I missed it, they will be answered to you later on privately via email. So let me pick up a question. Can we see an example of required prerequisite software and other multi-step installation set drives? All right, so let me take to the product. Okay, so to answer this question, you have to use the collections. On the configurations, you see collections, and you have to go to user collections. Okay, so the requirement of prerequisite software will be taken when you add the package. You need to select the pre-deployment activities that can be for the specific software. However, a software configuration cannot be combined with a drive mapping configuration. So as of now, mapping config software deployment configuration. So it will be two separate tasks you need to create, one for and second for mapping the drive. Next question I see, do users need admin rights self-service portal? The answer is no. That the end user may not need to have an administrator right, because by default we'll be using the system user in the backend. Next question I see, when doing sequence deployment of software, if the first package fails, does it attempt to continue? And how is notification sent back? A very good question. So the answer is no. So if the first package is failed, it will completely hold the complete configuration deployment. And retry enable in progress, you might need to modify the package, delete the first package from the list, and then deploy again. So that will continue the remaining of the package. Questions I see, if the installation is at the stage of yet to apply, how can we force it to start the install? So the yet to apply itself uh, might have the reason behind it. So why the config is yet to apply? So as soon as you deploy any configuration, wait to execute state, and it will wait for those agents to communicate and take the job. So normally within 90 minutes, the task should be executed. If in case it is not started within 90 minutes, need to troubleshoot, need to check the agent server communication, whether they are in active mode or not. Okay. And somebody asked, will this session will be recorded so we can look it again later? It will be recorded and will be published in our website. Okay. One more question somebody asked is, I cannot see self-service feature under. The reason might be because you're running of desktop central. So the self-service feature is available only in Enterprise Edition. So please ensure you're running Enterprise Edition, otherwise you can upgrade to Enterprise. Somebody asked, how would I deploy MS Office using Desktop Central? So that is almost a semi-automation what we have, since if you go to templates and if you search for MS Office, given MS Office, and on the right hand side you will see learn more. So you just click on that, that will take you to our website, and that will have the clear instructions and the steps which you can follow. As you know, this cannot be fully automated because it involves the customization as well as MSG file creation and the licensing handling. So those things you need to handle when you create the Office customization file. So you just need to follow this article which have a clear instructions. All right, so rest of the questions which we missed, we'll try to answer you via email offline. All right, so that's brings to the end of the trip. Thank you folks for, I hope it was useful, informative, and gave you better knowledge on the product. So if you have any feedbacks or concerns, feel free to reply to just fill up your comments on that. Once again, thank